Hi, my name is George Graham, and I'm a director from District 8. The resolutions procedure can be found in the annual meeting program. I will be asking for your ratification of them, so please ensure that you're familiar with the procedures. CAP will be sunsetting resolutions that are 5 years old. CAP members had the opportunity to reaffirm resolutions by reviewing the list of sunsetted resolutions posted in CAP's website. This year, we will be archiving resolutions from 2017. CAP's resolution sunsetting policy is included in the program. The resolutions are included in your meeting package and will be showing the entire resolution on the screen share. Amendments will be made live on the screen using track changes. Please ensure your name on the screen is correct. Full name and district or affiliation. You can do this by right-clicking on your name on the screen and selecting rename. All 8 resolutions may not have been included in your meeting package. I will ask for a motion to accept late resolutions if time permits. Jill will read the resolution, and then I will ask for the mover and seconder. I will read the resolution before voting occurs if it has been amended. If you wish to speak to a resolution, please use the hand raise function and staff will unmute you and I will recognize you. Staff are monitoring the chat and keeping track of people who have raised their hand. Everyone will have a chance to speak in turn. The remarks of movers and resolutions will be limited to 5 minutes. Voting on resolutions will be managed using the policy or the polling function. Delegates will have 20 seconds to vote before the poll is closed. Each poll will be verified after the meeting to ensure voting accuracy, and the results will be announced tomorrow morning. Only district delegates and group member delegates are eligible to vote. CAP directors are not permitted to vote. Are there any questions at this time?
Seeing none at this moment, but I will just say, George, you have a motion from David to accept resolutions and a seconder from Reg Dick in District 3.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask Jill to proceed with resolution number 1.
Resolution 1, as it was not a late resolution, I will just be rereading the resolved portion and the individuals that moved and seconded it from the district. So the first resolution is from District 1, Manitoba Hydro, and it's from District 4. Resolved that Keystone Egg Producers lobby Manitoba Hydro to install natural gas infrastructure at cost to all rural residents. That was moved by Les Felsch and seconded by Dennis Thiessen. So I guess, go ahead.
To speak to this motion?
Yes. All right, Les, go ahead.
I guess we had a big discussion on this in District 4, and we realized that many residents in the province of Manitoba do not have natural gas or options to natural gas. Residents, hog barns, farms, and even towns without natural gas. The way Manitoba Hydro is pricing their infrastructure to any resident or organization that requires natural gas is it's an exorbitant price that they have. And most of us with the other options are running propane, which is not as green as natural gas because of transportation costs and fracturing costs. The other issue, I guess, when it comes to grain drying, the federal government's incentives for residue burning do not compete with the price of natural gas either, and cannot necessarily be used in a timely fashion. I don't know if my seconder wants to speak to this or not, but I've looked into it, and their price per mile for bringing natural gas to my farm for grain drying only is it would not be any return on investment over a 10-year period. I hope everybody else is in the same position as me and is looking at an option to get natural gas.
Thank
That's
you.
it for now.
We'll open the floor for discussion. David Rourke.
Go ahead, David.
I would speak against the motion. We've heard a lot today from our political leaders as well as even our own executive in terms of the need to take the environment more seriously. And I would imagine over time, carbon tax will be applied in a greater way. So that would make natural gas or investments in natural gas pipelines unprofitable. So I would speak against it.
Thank you, David. Is there any further discussion? Butch Harder? If you can unmute yourself, Butch.
Go ahead, Butch. Oh. Butch, you're still on mute.
Can we move to Dean Harder then?
See. Go ahead, Dean.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. My dad's on a different computer. Well, I'm opposed based on it's asking for all rural residents. So that means every single rural resident would somehow get a pipeline to their house. That just seems just not tangible or possible. When we're talking about just getting it from Morris to Low Farm, we're told it's $100,000 per mile. Like, it's a lot of infrastructure money to do that. I'm not saying it shouldn't be in more places, but I agree with David Rourke's comment that this is, may not be the long-term solution people are hoping for, and it's asking for all rural residents. So like that just seems like a lot of money that can spend in many different places. So I'm opposed.
Thanks, Dean. The mover, Les Felsh, you wanted to respond? Or I'm getting things.
Sorry, they're bouncing around a little bit here on my Zoom feed.
Okay, am I available right now?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, maybe these past two speakers haven't looked at the resolution. I'm asking Manitoba Hydro to do it at cost, and that is to any resident who would like to have that option of having natural gas. And some of them don't realize that there is no other option when it comes to other greener products on the market. Electricity is not an option for drying grain or even hog barns, for heating hog barns. The cost of that infrastructure is unreal also. I guess I hope I turn some heads on that one.
Thanks, Les. Kevin Stott, if you could, one thing I should have mentioned previously, if all speakers could identify themselves and their district, that would be helpful. Thank you. Kevin, you're up.
Yeah, Kevin Stott, District 4. Like, I agree with Les. They put this carbon footprint stuff in front of us, and they got to give us tools to start working with it. As he said, he didn't say it had to go to every resident, but at cost was the important part. Dean mentioned they charge $100,000 a mile. Is that a realistic cost or very inflated? And as I went through hydro, I found out what hydro costs to put a pole and a line in is 3 times as much as what a normal contract would. So it was to keep the cost down so that we can try meeting our carbon footprint goals. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Les Ferris.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, as a consumer of electricity, I just feel that I will be subsidizing the installation of natural gas. And we're not, here we are moving towards no greenhouse gases or reduction in that. And here you want us to subsidize the installation of a greenhouse gas into Manitoba. So I'm opposed to this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Les. Bill McVicker.
So I believe the resolution indicated that the service be installed at cost. That doesn't mean that other ratepayers cover that cost. That means that the recipient cover the cost of the installation.
I believe that is the intent of the resolution. Yes, thank you, Bill.
George, I also just want to flag that Reg Dick has made a comment. Reg, I don't know if you want to share that audibly, just regarding an amendment.
Yes, the way I read the resolution, it says at cost to all rural residents, when I think maybe Les is intending that it goes to rural residents that are requiring or wanting to get gas.
Okay.
Oh, we have one. Okay, we have 2 more speakers, Clayton Harder and yes, just Clayton Harder.
Okay, go ahead, Clayton.
Hey, yeah, it's Clayton. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm honestly just trying to figure out how the settings on the computer work. I didn't deliberately raise my hand. I apologize.
Okay.
We also have Dave Schott and Leonard Gluska.
Go ahead, Dave.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, it's Dave Schott, District 10. I'm going to speak against this resolution, and I'll tell you why. So we're asking for infrastructure costs to be covered to the recipient. Now, that's all depending on how far he's away from the main line and how big that main line is, if they can even tap into it for their usage. Now, we have gas running up to Arborg right now, and it goes through the town of Gimli, and it comes from the main line out of Selkirk. So there's a Hutterite colony here that was interested in hooking up to extending the line west of the town. Unfortunately, we have 2 more Hutterite colonies that have set up since in Arnez and Gimli. Now, they were looking at tying into that line too. So now the trouble comes is that line isn't big enough to service all these properties and anybody else that was, thinking that they would like to hook up to it too. So, this is a bigger question. It takes a vision from the Manitoba government to size these lines for future use for the towns and individuals that want to hook up. It's not just as easy to run a line, because if one of those Hutterite colonies tap into that main line running to our town right now, they would actually have to twin that line or run a separate line up north. So Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think this is well thought out yet. That's just my comment. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. I think we've reached our 5-minute threshold. So I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor?
Oh, I will note that you have 2 hands from Cal and Bill.
Well, I think we need to, in order to maintain our 5-minute.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not trying to just flagging them for you.
Yeah, I didn't see the hands up when I called the question, so.
We'll give everybody about 10 more seconds here to place their votes or to cast their votes. Okay, George, I think we're ready to move on to the next resolution. And just a reminder that as we tabulate the results here, the resolution results will be announced tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Thanks, Graham. Jill, resolution number 2.
Thanks, George. So resolution number 2, non-arm's length transactions, District 4. Resolve that Keystone Ag producers lobby the Government of Canada to treat non-arm's length transactions the same as arm's length transactions on farm property transfer for the purposes of valuing for taxation. Moved by Kevin Stott, seconded by Scott Rempel.
Would the mover like to speak to this resolution?
Yes, and I hope a couple other my district guys do, because there is one fellow who's far more versed in it than I am. But anyway, we know that this was brought forward by Larry McGuire, but what Larry McGuire brought forward, we didn't think, and our accountants don't think it services us properly for what we want to achieve. It only services for a son. We want to make sure we can be serviced for any direct sibling to us, nephew, niece, and so forth. So we would like to submit this one because we don't think Larry's covers us yet. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. We'll now open the floor for discussion. Bill McVicker.
Yeah, I think Kevin did speak to that, that originally we thought the valuation as deeming the farm value for transferring was alleged by accountants over time, and then of course the arm's length transactions may be honored more so than, like, part of the act says that the non-arm's length transactions would be deemed at fair market value, which, and when you're trying to give the land to your nephew, it offers a severe tax consequence, often ranging now in the neighborhood of $1,500 per acre tax. And so Kevin spoke to it a bit, just to say that if you would include, it's a bit of a different resolution, but if you would include nieces and nephews as direct line descendants, you allow them to be included in that whole tax deferral provision afforded to direct line descendants.
Thanks, Bill. Rory?
Hi, yeah, the only thing I would say on this resolution is the wording is quite vague as to, what exactly it is you're after here. I get what you're trying to do, but it's just for our staff and our trying to lobby this. I would just say the wording's pretty vague. Thanks.
Thanks, Roy. Shannon.
Hi, thank you. And I agree. I think the wording is pretty vague. And I think that if you are looking at, if you just say non-arm's length transactions, that includes anyone. So if you are specifically concerned about potentially nieces and nephews, grandchildren, then perhaps it would be better served to have the resolution have that cap lobby the government to change the definition of who arm's length and non-arm's length individuals are.
Thanks, Shannon.
Seeing no further comments at this time. Oh, Kevin Stott would like to respond.
Kevin. Go ahead, Kevin.
We agree. It could be somewhat vague, and in reality, in the end, what you're trying to do, we have certain communities out there that have a tax advantage over us who can keep passing land on generation after generation. And if we are going to compete against them, we need to find a way that we can do it also. And it was vague somewhat because some people have a hired man who's like a son or a nephew. Should we stop it at a nephew or a niece, or should we be able to go further with it in order to keep our farming community out there? Like Rory's mentioned lots of times, we have a problem with young farmers. This is one of the solutions to the problem of young farmers. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Any further discussion?
Have one more person, Dean Harder.
Dean Harder.
Yes, in light of the discussion, and I think I'm hopeful that there's agreement on the desired intent, but without having to create an amendment in that situation, I know time is important today. I would like to make a motion to refer this resolution to the board.
You want to the board or to committee?
Well, if there's a specific committee, then to committee, sure, yes, committee, fair enough.
All right, we have a motion. Do you have a seconder? Do we require a seconder to move this to committee?
I'm hopeful.
I know, David, you did have your hand up for a second there. Sorry.
Go ahead, David. David,
you're just muted right now. I'll send you a request to unmute here.
I did, yeah. I should be good now.
Yes.
I think Kevin clarified that pretty well. It would include any blood relative or hired man. I think the key is that everybody else that's at arm's length has a better deal. So people that would be considered at a non-arm's length should have the same opportunity. So I think it's simple enough as it is.
George, you do have a few comments here from Jake, from Glenn, and from Edgar. If either of you would like to share those or expand on that, please just raise your hand. We do have Butch. Go ahead, Butch.
Butch, were you still wanting to speak?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I wasn't sure on Dave's comments, Royce. What did he want? What was he for the resolution, or is it the amendment? Was he for the amendment or was he against it?
The resolution has not been amended.
Mm-hmm.
We are asking that it be a motion was presented, and I'm a little mixed up here, that it be forwarded to committee. We'll need a seconder for that motion in order for that to happen.
if I can get on this voice thing, I second it.
Thank you, Butch. Now, I'm not,
You do have one more hand.
oh, Herbert.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
I agree with David Rourke. I think that I think we know what this resolution is all about. We know and I really don't like. I think we just need to pass this if people want it passed, and I don't think we need to refer it to a committee. Thanks.
Can we get I've been asked to call for a vote on the motion to,
Les has his hand up, George.
pardon me?
Les Belch has his hand up.
Oh, Les, sorry.
Okay, I guess if you send this to committee, it's just going to drag out for another year. Some of our people that want to move on this issue don't have that much time. And I think we'll just get on with it the way it is. That's it.
Thanks, Les. Kevin Stott.
I'm assuming if I keep talking, I'll be unwelcome soon. To me, this is very much like the our land tax. The amount that land has gone up, they will still probably achieve as much tax as they would have 5 or 10 years ago, because even with the capital gains exemption, there still is a tax allotted to that land, that the only way you can get it back is by working for the next 5 years, and whatever tax you owe in the next 5 years, you would get back. So if a guy is retiring, he's still paying tax on that, even though he has a capital gains exemption. I don't think we're taking too much away from the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jake Kerr.
And just on a point of order, Mr. Chairman, we have two motions, I believe, on the floor, do we not? We have a motion to send to committee, and then the resolution itself. Just on a point of order, what are we discussing, and what are the members voting on here?
We should be actually voting whether or not to send it to committee. So we'll call for that vote, please.
Okay, George, just give us 1 second here, and it is ready. Go ahead. We'll have about 20 seconds
here. And we're voting on whether or not to send this resolution to committee or to deal with it now.
I think we have a definitive answer in that. George, are you able to see that?
No, I'm not.
So we can't tabulate, vote by vote at this point, but we can say at this point, 71% of you have voted to oppose to the question. So I think we can proceed with considering it right now.
Very good. So we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Just a few more seconds. Okay. We are good to proceed to, I believe, late resolutions at this point.
Resolution number
3. And that is from District 12. And I'll read the resolution in its entirety. And it's also on the screen here for you. Whereas Northern Manitoba producers have struggled in recent years to ship grain to the port of Churchill, and whereas the Government of Canada invested $117 million from the Western Economic Diversification Canada with the consortium to purchase the railway, port, lands, and other facilities to improve the transportation link to the port of Churchill, Now, therefore, be it resolved that Keystone agricultural producers lobby the Port of Churchill to resume grain movement as soon as possible. Be it further resolved that Keystone agri producers lobby the Port of Churchill to develop a long-term Arctic bridge strategy that would strengthen the movement of grain and specialty crops to Europe. And be it further resolved that Keystone agricultural producers lobby the consortium group members to ask for more market access when the Port of Churchill reopens for grain shipments in 2023 or 2024. Moved by Leonard Gluska, seconded by John Stanburn.
Thanks, Jill. Would the mover like to speak to the resolution?
Yes, the resolution as it was presented from District 12 was maybe a bit wordy, and the resolution committee cleaned it up, which is quite acceptable to our group. There's a part here that basically we need to make an amendment here to make it more clear as to what our intent was here. And so the resolution certainly represents the huge problem that I could write a book on, but I'm not going to today because we don't have time. But our intent is as mover and I think seconder is to move a motion to amend parts of this resolution. And I'll turn it to John if he has anything to add on this resolution as was presented. John, are you on?
John, if you can unmute yourself. You may also not want to speak to the resolution, which is okay. We do have a hand up as well with Paul.
Okay. We'll open the floor for, now we have, the mover has asked for an amendment. Can we, we'll need a second, or do you have a copy of the amendment, Neil? I believe you sent it to us earlier today. All right, I'm going to need to get you to increase that just a little bit. There we go. In the resolve portion, resolve the CAP lobby of the Port of Churchill to resume grain movement as soon as possible. Further resolved, the CAP lobby of the Port of Churchill to develop a long-term Arctic bridge strategy that would promote the export of grain and specialty crops to the international market. And further be it resolved, the CAP consortium group members to demand the return of the rail and the Port of Churchill access and services for Manitoba producers.
Now, George, Leonard does have his hand up.
Leonard, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, the resolution as was passed here a moment ago refers seems to emphasize that market access is the issue. It isn't an issue at all. Ever since the wheat board is gone, there is no market problems. Everybody's up to do their own marketing. The fact is here that the facilities are here. The Port of Churchill is there to provide the service to load grain from port into ship. The railroad is there to provide the transportation of grain from a producer car loading site or wherever it's loaded in the Western Canada or wherever to the port. The producer car loading site provides the service as well. So basically, this is dealing with transportation and access. As the first whereas talks about being locked out of Port of Churchill, the Port of Churchill was functioning fine because of a dispute between Omnitrax and the province of Manitoba at the time. They had to go through with their threat, and they actually shut down the port on July 26th. And when there was rail cars loaded, ready to go, and I could write a book on that part of it. But basically, this is strictly access for services, and that's been denied. There's been no grain moved, except by in the last 7 years through the Port of Churchill, except the partnership that evolved from the takeover from Omnitrax, and that was a conflict of interest type of movement, and it came out of southwestern Saskatchewan. This in 1931 was built and served this catchment area of Swan River and the Pas and northeastern Saskatchewan for years, and has now been locked out, and there's no access being given to the. So the thing is, we have to open up the dialogue on this, and our group have been exasperated to a point where we feel we had maybe an avenue here that we could move with. So, and it's basically to promote the export. We're not looking for market access, it's there. There's grain companies, small grain companies that were trying hard to export through there. We had that grain that was hauled even from Swan River this year into the loading site at the Pas. That grain ended up going to Quebec by rail because it was not being accepted at Port of Churchill, and it's had nothing to do with the railway not being able to handle it because there's constant freight moving. There was plans in place. Producers bought, investors put money into rail cars, the whole bit, but powers that be that are involved here decided that that's not going to happen, and the plans were all in place until new management took over, and that's the sum total of it in 7 years. It's a huge detriment to the economics of the area. For instance, in the year of falling numbers, when everybody was getting somewhere between $5 and $6 a bushel for their wheat, dry wheat with low falling numbers. The farmers from the Pas were netting $4 or less because of the distance they had to travel, and yet if it had been shipped through Churchill, it probably would have netted about $6.50 a bushel. So just basically the overview of what the heck is going on here, and so we want to get this into the open and get the discussion going. So I would
Leonard,
I would ask for your support of this resolution just to help us in this District 12, which takes in Swan River as well.
Thanks, Leonard, for your comments. But I guess to get point of order back. Sorry, George. We've got two individuals. We need this amendment. We have a motion and we need it seconded. We have two individuals that have seconded the motion in the chat, and then we need to open it for discussion. But thanks for your comments, Leonard. But we need to get this actually moved and seconded first before we can actually discuss. But
I apologize. I accept your point of order.
Okay, thank you very much, Leonard.
Order. Thank you very much for doing that.
I believe, Paul, you've seconded this amendment. Would you like to comment, Paul? Now that we can open the floor for discussion.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Also, I was wanting to know, Leonard, would you be open to an amendment regarding the port for the use of importation of Russian fertilizer or offshore fertilizer? We're looking at some dire consequences this spring because of supply chain issues.
Paul, point of order here. Let's discuss the amendment as stated first before we have to vote on this amendment first.
Oh, okay, no problem. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment?
You have a hand in, oh, Kevin Stott, were you looking to speak to this? You could raise your hand again. There we go.
Go ahead, Kevin.
The ownership of the railway, isn't that owned by a different nation now? Can we do anything if it's owned by a different nation?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Any further discussion?
The ownership of this railway and port and the tank farm are owned by the communities of the North, First Nations and urban and Northern Affairs communities, Thompson, Flin Flon, Tepaw, to name a few. So it's a Northern owned group called under One North. And it's managed and operating under the name of Arctic Gateway Group.
Thanks, Leonard. Any further discussions on the amendments?
Not seeing any at this time, George.
Thanks, Graham. We'll call the question then, please. All those in favor of the resolution as amended?
Give everybody a few more seconds here. And again, we are not unable to verify vote by vote, but a clear majority, 80%, has voted in favor.
Thank you very much. Now we will open the floor for discussion on the resolution as amended.
We have Chuck Fossey.
Go ahead, Charles.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to refer this resolution to the Transportation Committee. I think we need some more information and get some answer to some questions before we can really take a good policy position on this resolution. So I'm hoping that somebody will second my motion to refer to the Transportation Committee.
Jake Ayer has raised his hand as well.
Jake, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I will. Jake Ayer will second that, District 1.
Thank you, Jake.
Leonard has also raised his hand.
Go ahead, Leonard.
Sorry, Leonard, we're still doing that whole mute, unmute thing. If you can take yourself off mute.
All right, I'm certainly not opposed to being referred to Transportation Committee, but I would also support what Paul Gregory had come in previous to our passing this amendment to a further amendment regarding the imports, and that's right in line with what the whole group, the producers group here is in line for us. So if that makes any difference to for the enlarged discussion of it, I would encourage a further amendment of that, but and moving it to a Transportation Committee. Just a overview comment on whichever way the group wants it to go. Thank you.
Well, I think that could be probably discussed at the committee level, whether this would be, facility could be used for import and export. Ask the
George,
question. Go ahead.
yeah, so there's a motion on the floor and that
Yeah.
has to be debated and then voted.
We have a motion to move this resolution to committee. Butch Harder. Any discussion?
I've unmuted Butch. Butch, go ahead.
but the problem is I sense there's some urgency for the people that want this, and maybe the same argument was put to before, and I would like Leonard to speak on this. You refer this to a committee, and you know, where will that end? I understand the people of the north and the area affected are really concerned about this issue. Now you refer this to a committee, and oh my gosh, that's what I'm a little concerned about. I think we all have the intent of this resolution. In my mind, the resolution says, let's move as much grain through the Port of Churchill as we can, as soon as possible. And the resolution also says that let's try, if it's economical, given the cost of fertilizer, that we import as much through that as possible. What is so complicated about that?
Thanks, Butch. David Rourke.
Yeah, I guess I have a lot of questions. I wrote in the chat that, you know, will Churchill be viable for heavy traffic in the light of more unstable permafrost? And there must be some logical reason that the owners of that line aren't wanting the business. So I can see Butch's need for urgency, but I can also see more discussion. And given what Brenna's talking about in terms of collaboration and stuff, I suspect we can kind of do both. So I would support putting it to committee.
Thanks,
District
David.
1, sorry.
Go ahead, Leonard.
As I listen to the discussion, Butch, I think you put some thoughts in my head. Yeah, it has urgency on it. And to answer Dave's question regarding it's not necessarily the line, it's the internal, and I'm going into territory that's confidential, but there's internal strategies and so on, and directives here that need resolving at the board and board level and managed level. And it's the rail is running free. It's not up to it needs upgrading, and can be continued to upgrade. The fact is, there's rail cars that we producers invested in are being used to bring screenings back from Churchill to the PA to distribute into the Western Canada. And a matter of a few cars, it was decided that there was no problem in handling, rather than 140 grain train type, it's 140 car grain train, it could handle like 34 cars every time there was a freight going north, whether there's one or two, and 10 movements would provide a 30,000 ton ship of wheat. On that basis, there was wheat there this year that probably could have had 6 or 7 ships shipped out of there easily in the time frame starting when the grain was moving. Some of our customers that are waiting, that would be buying, are having problems with storage initially when they're buying the stuff, and they're prepared. There's 140,000 ton storage sitting
Leonard,
empty, and it's not being used.
Sorry,
so it's
I'd like
internal.
to call point of order, Leonard. You've had your time to speak. We have a motion on the floor to move to committee, and I apologize for cutting you off. We have to move according to point of order on the floor, and I would like to move to ask the question on moving to committee, please.
We have a motion on the floor to move this resolution to committee. All those in favor?
Give everyone a few more seconds here. And again, while we're not able to verify everything vote by vote at this time, I can say 60% have voted in favor to move to committee.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you everyone for your discussion, and we'll move on to the next resolution for noxious weeds. Whereas Amaranthus pulmonary is not considered or is listed as a prohibited noxious weed in the West Seeds order, and whereas Amaranthus palmeri has been detected in American soybean seed coming into Canada and is now present in Manitoba rural municipality, and whereas Amaranthus palmeri can reduce the opportunity for market access in the United States due to its designation as a noxious weed in some states, whereas Amaranthus palmeri tends to be a herbicide resistant, which impacts a seed's grower's ability to grow seed crops, whereas common pigweed and oh my goodness, I have to apologize. I had practiced this before. Palmeri cannot be differentiated through a PCR strip test that is commonly available in the American seed labs. And therefore, be it resolved that CAP lobby the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to have Amaranthus palmeri added to the prohibited noxious weed seed under the weed seeds order. I'm sorry, I butchered that resolution. I apologize. Moved by Paul Gregory, seconded by Shannon Piziak.
Thanks, Jill. Would the mover like to speak to the resolution?
Sure, thank you, George. For Latin folks out there, we would call this, or we'd pronounce this Amaranthus palmeri. And but you had me smiling pretty good there. Thanks, Jill. So this is self-explanatory motion. This is brought to my attention by our local weed lab, local seed lab, Integrity Seeds. And so this is something that it's a really noxious weed. It has multiple resistance, and we do not want it in Manitoba. And so just to have this particular weed species listed is extremely important. And the reason is that this Palmer amaranth or Amaranthus palmeri is not listed is that up till now, or at least a couple of years ago, they could not distinguish the difference between common pigweed and Palmer amaranth. But the American labs have PCR. It's very straightforward. And so we're asking CFIA to include that technology. It's very good technology, and to have this weed listed. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I'll now open the floor for discussion.
There are a few discussion points about the name and how to spell it, but not seeing anything at this time.
Seeing no discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor?
And we'll give everybody a few more seconds here. And we can move on to resolution 5.
Okay, resolution number 5, funding for breeding programs, and Manitoba Oak Growers Association brought this resolution forward. Whereas the federal government is currently developing research and innovation programs for 23 to 28 policy framework, whereas funding through Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada's Agri-Science Cluster Program is crucial to the operations of public breeding programs, and whereas breeding activities that develop trade, technology, and innovation play a vital role in the economic and environmental sustainability of crop production in Canada, therefore be it resolved that the Keystone Egg Producers lobby Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada to protect the viability of public crop breeding programs to ensure that agri-science clusters provides funding for all crop breeding activities necessary to bring a new crop variety to market. Be it further resolved that Keystone Agricultural Producers Lobby, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, that a minimum 70-30 government producer cost share funding ratio is reinstated for smaller acre crops that cannot afford to meet the full cost share ratio. Moved by Ray Mazniak and seconded by Pam Durochny.
Would the mover like to speak to the resolution?
You know, we have someone here. I'm not sure that this is the mover.
Marley's?
Oh, I think Nick is the mover.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
It's Ray Mazinki with the Manitoba Oak Growers. I will move this motion, and just to make sure the last name is spelled properly. Yep, you got it. It was pronounced a little different, but the spelling is correct.
Thanks, Ray.
Sorry, Ray. Thanks for clearing that up.
Now we have Nick.
Go ahead, Nick.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nick Matheson from Manitoba Crop Alliance, and I'd like to second this motion, and if I could speak on it a little bit. Manitoba Crop Alliance recognizes the importance of the research and innovation to the success of Manitoba farmers. For the 2021-22 fiscal year, 65% of our expenses are allocated towards the research and production. One of MCA's biggest research priority areas is variety development and genetic enhancement. Manitoba farmers alone cannot carry the funding load themselves. To be successful, funding and support from the federal governments must be there. With the uncertainty of the looming ahead of the federal government's ability to fund research and innovation, Manitoba Crop Alliance would like to stress how important research and innovation is critical to farmer success. Also, we would like to leverage our farmers members dollars we would like to leverage our farmers member dollars. MCAs support the motion where AAFC's next agri-science cluster program must provide greater government funding support for variety development initiatives in smaller acreage crops. This includes the crop types we represent, such as flax, sunflowers, and grain corn. MCA would like to expect governments to be partners in supporting public plant breeding varieties. Variety development is a critical solution to helping the government achieve their priorities as stated in the Guelph Statement, including tackling climate change and environmental protection, as well as continued and targeted investments in science and research innovation. MCA also wants to emphasize the continued role of public breeding institutions such as Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, AAFC, Crop Development Center, CDC, and universities involved in varietal developments, as MCA wants healthy public breeding programs. These programs will deliver varieties that will help our farmer members be more productive and sustainable.
Thank you, Nick. Paul Gregory.
Thanks, George. I strongly support this resolution, and I operated in a forage species world, and this is something that we've seen a real lack of commitment by federal resources for forage species, and going forward with carbon sequestration and lowering our environmental footprint. I know all the nitrogen fixing legumes and grasses are extremely important, but we sure need this resolution. And it also too, it is an opportunity for very small companies to pick up these given federal or these given national or public varieties. And so it's something that it doesn't have to be the domain of the huge multinationals. Very small companies like ourselves can pick up a variety that's publicly bred, and I think it's opportunity and better competition. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Is there any further discussion on this resolution?
We also have Butch Harder, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think this is a very good resolution. If you read between the lines, the Germination magazine that I get, I believe it's the one, and it talks about changing our systems to be more industry friendly. Industry friendly to me does not nearly always include markets. If we had gone by industry friendly, canola would have never been developed. It was developed by the University of Manitoba. There was public involvement. If I read between the lines, what the Grain Growers of Canada promoting, it's also more industry involvement. And I know what they mean by industry in my mind. They don't mean necessarily farmers. They want to develop varieties that make more money for industry. And the industry doesn't really give a damn about the smaller farmers, the smaller crops. So I think it's a very good resolution and we should support it.
Thanks, Butch. Any further discussion?
Not seeing any at this time.
Not seeing any hands up? And I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
We'll give everyone a few more seconds here. Okay, we can move on to resolution 6.
Okay, thank you. Our final resolution, trade and market development programs brought forward from Manitoba Oak Growers Association. Whereas the federal government is developing market support programs for 2023 through to 2028 policy framework, whereas trade access and market development programs are important for diversifying market and production opportunities in the sector. And whereas smaller acre crops and niche commodities may not have the fiscal capacity to meet the cost-sharing funding thresholds, address emerging market trade restrictions, or promote their products in domestic markets now, therefore be it resolved that Keystone Agricultural Producers work with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada to ensure that the federal trade and market development programs meet the needs of smaller acre crops and niche commodities through program changes that provide funding for domestic market development, including activities to promote the health benefits of agriculture and agri-food products to Canadian, financial assistance to help sectors resolve emerging non-tariff trade restrictions, including technical and political barriers to trade in overseas markets. And thirdly, flexible funding agreements for commodity associations that are unable to meet the existing cost-shared funding ratio agreements. And if I can ask for a mover and seconder from the Manitoba Oak Growers Association, please.
Marley's? Am I pronouncing that properly?
No, actually, it's Ray. I think it came up as my wife's name, but Ray Mazinki again, Manitoba Oak Growers.
Okay.
And once again, just to summarize, just wanting not to forget about the smaller acreage crops and establish a fair playing field, kind of similar to the previous motion.
Thank you, Ray. Do we have a
I
seconder?
believe you do. Nick, go ahead.
Once again, Nick Matheson here from Manitoba Crop Alliance, and I'd like to speak on this one a little bit as well. Manitoba Crop Alliance supports market access and development programming as we want to position and promote Manitoba and Canadian wheat. This includes spring and winter, barley, corn, sunflowers, and flax production, and products in a way that increase value, decrease marketing costs, and provides a greater net back to farmer members. MCA wishes to maintain and enhance Canada's quality brand reputation through strategic partnerships, including the Government of Canada. To do this, AAFC must be partners and support smaller acreage crops where achieving cost-shared funding ratios are more difficult to achieve. MCA believes increased funding to trade and market development programs to smaller acreage crops, as well as funding to all major crops, will help the government achieve their priorities as stated in the Guelph Statement. including support to help meet evolving changes in the interconnected domestic and global marketplace, as well as build sector capacity and growth through the potential of value-added opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Is there any further discussion?
Not seeing any at this time, but we'll give everyone a few more seconds. I think we are okay to proceed.
Thanks, Graham. We'll call the
Sorry. Well, I will leave that to the chair to decide whether or not I interrupted you in time, but Butch has raised his hand. Sorry
Butch will give you a quick comment. Butch, are you there?
I had to unmute. Number one, not that it makes a lot of difference. Whose resolution is it? The Crop Alliance or the Manitoba Oat Growers? That's maybe not here nor there, but my arguments for supporting this are very much the same as the others, is that we need to support the small crops, and sometimes we don't nearly always want government involvement. In this case, we need to, because if we don't, again, the big guys in the game don't worry about this kind of stuff too much. But I know in southern Manitoba and probably many other areas, these niche markets and smaller crops are there's something that kind of keep us alive. So it's a good resolution in my mind.
Thanks, Butch.
Not seeing any further comments at this time.
All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor?
And we'll give everyone a few more seconds here. And we are ready to move to resolution 7.
Okay, this resolution was received today and accepted as a late resolution. Increased access and awareness to pesticide recycling, District 3. Whereas rural Manitoba communities may not have sufficient access to recycling or disposing of used pesticide containers. Whereas Manitoba producers may choose to dispose of used pesticide containers through burying or burning, and whereas Manitoba producers may have a lack of awareness of the available disposable sites that currently accept pesticide containers in the province, therefore be it resolved that the Keystone Agricultural Producers lobby the Manitoba government or government of Manitoba, rural municipalities to increase the number of locations in Manitoba that accept used pesticide containers and obsolete chemicals. Be it further resolved that Keystone Agricultural Producers work with Clean Farms, agri-retailers, the Department of Agriculture, and rural municipalities to increase awareness of the current pesticide container recycling program available to Manitoba producers. Moved by Colin Pinner, seconded by Linda Nielsen.
Would the mover like to speak to this resolution?
I'll let the ag diploma students speak to this one.
Jessica.
No. Yeah, okay.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm a university student at the U of M, and I'm coming to you from District 3. Now, I'd just like to touch on Clean Farms, since that is where a lot of farmers go to figure out where they can drop off these products. Now, looking at the map, there seems to be a lot of drop-off locations, but it is wildly inaccurate and has extremely vague information. This causes confusion and frustration, which creates a situation where farms resort to improper and unsafe disposal of these drugs and obsolete pesticides. Now, Clean Farms is a program that is sponsored by the Government of Manitoba and CropLife Canada. And their sponsorship and program plan that was sponsored by them has not been revisited since 2008. That is over a decade ago. And now more than ever, environmental impact is becoming a big topic in the agriculture industry. And I want to stress the importance of this topic since producers are willing and they have the want to dispose of these products safely and properly, but there simply is not proper information or access. This needs to change because farmers and ag retailers face this frustrating issue every year.
Thanks, Jess. Logan?
Yeah, so I'm also a diploma student from District 3. So one of the reasons we think this is an important issue is agriculture industry is also is always facing pressure from environmental groups and people outside the industry for our use of harsh chemicals and things that are seen as harmful for the environment. We want to show people that farmers do care for the environment, but if environmentalists find out the amount of chemical jugs we use and that they are rarely or aren't often being disposed of properly, they wouldn't be very happy with us and it would give them more ammo to attack us with. So we don't think this is an overly difficult issue to fix, and it's something that could really improve the general perception of agriculture. Thank you.
Thanks, Logan. We'll open the floor for discussion.
We have
Brett?
Brett. Go ahead, Brett. Brett, we can see you're unmuted, but not hearing anything from you at this point.
Any better?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay, so I'm Brett and I'm also from District 3 and in the diploma program. So education on pesticide disposal needs to be taught on these farm operations as a beginning step. So supervision is necessary to make sure that these needs are met and done properly. Triple rinsing containers and ensuring they are fully clear of chemicals must be enforced, and slashing to prevent a secondary unsafe use can also be done, but also at some operations is not allowed just due to safety concerns. Removing caps and labels once triple rinse is also necessary. Education and safe disposal, and you should follow labels and instructions to make certain that this is all done properly. So after hearing about some of the steps that go into safe disposable, you kind of realize how many operations may not be following them correctly.
Thank you. I think we had Jada up next, and then Chad.
Perfect. So hi, I'm Jada Ricard, a diploma student from District 2. I've interviewed Wayne Kirk, a manager at a Cargill Crop Inputs retail location in Nesbitt. He expressed his concern of a lack of drop-off locations for small empty chemical containers. The retail location doesn't have a proper way to dispose of 10-liter jugs, as they can't just simply bring them to dumps because they contain hazardous material. Cargill supposedly offers large plastic bags to supply to farmers, but Wayne mentions that he has never even seen them at the retail locations. So Wayne is forced to bury these plastic jugs. So this is cause for concern, as it is a major biohazard to bury these contaminated jugs. Thank you.
Thank you. Chad?
Hi, yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First and foremost, thank you everyone for taking the time and giving us a platform to share concerns. My name is Chad Thorsby. I am also a member of the diploma program at the U of M, as well as I work at an ag retail just outside of Stonewall when I'm not in school. Some of our customers are happy to bring back their empty chem jugs, but it is far from everyone. I know, for example, Clayton Harder, Nick Matheson, I see these guys properly disposing of their chemical jugs. Some people don't even know that we are a safe drop-off location. Talking about empty containers is not the whole problem. What do you do with those, full part jugs that maybe they've sat so long that the label isn't on them anymore? Grandpa and dad tossed them under the workbench way back in '96. You don't even know what they are. You can't pour them down the drain or dump them into the neighbor's ditch. Like we talked about, wouldn't be a good look for the already scrutinized public opinion of ag chemical use. Where I work, we offer a safe drop-off location for these obsolete chemical jugs, but it is only out of necessity for counteracting improper disposal. Some of these jugs have been at the company longer than I have. With what and where are we supposed to take these chemicals? What we need is more education and an acted upon plan for proper safe disposal of these chemicals. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Is there any further discussion?
Not seeing any other hands at this time. I think we are okay to proceed.
We'll call the question. All those in favor?
And we'll give everyone a few more seconds here. Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much. And we'd like to thank the School of Agriculture for their excellent presentations on that resolution. Well done. Now, I'm not sure.
We will invite Neil to join us here. I will just promote you as a panelist.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. So we have received one nomination for president for this year, and that nomination is Bill Campbell, and that's by the deadline of the signatures as per our bylaws and constitution. So it's my pleasure to acclaim Bill President as our president for 2022-23. No, 2022, sorry. I guess, can I call for I don't think I need a motion, just need it is claimed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And we just need to now pass the chair torch back to Bill.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. And it is with great appreciation that I have accepted the role of president for 2022-2023, and look forward to working with our vice presidents, Jill Bearway and Jake Eyre. So thank you, everyone, for that endorsement. We will now move on with our lunch break, and we will reconvene at 1:15. So thank you, everyone.